He was told he would never walk again. They said the damage was too much, that the legs would not obey, that a life of motion had ended in a hospital ward far from the jungle where it began. At night, when the ward went quiet, he rolled out of bed and crawled until his fingers found the cinder block wall. He pressed his shoulders against it, pushed, trembled, rose an inch, sank, rose again. One toe, one step, one prayer. Weeks later, he walked out without a cane, and the army measured him with a new word: still. His name was Roy Benavidez, a Green Beret from a small Texas town that taught him early that nobody is coming, so you go. He had seen fields before he saw classrooms, work before he knew shortcuts. In the Army he found brothers, and in Special Forces he found a creed that fit the bones. You do not leave a man behind. Vietnam, 1968. The day began with a call no one wanted to hear. A 12-man recon team was pinned down near the Cambodian border. The radio carried the rhythm of panic, shots too close to count, voices going thin. Helicopters tried to get in and came back scarred. The landing zone was a furnace. Command said, "Not yet." Roy grabbed a medical bag and a knife. No helmet speech, no grand plan. He ran to the helicopter and climbed aboard. The door gunner watched him check the bag, like a man counting prayers. The rotor wash found the grass, the gunfire found the air. The helicopter flared over a clearing that did not deserve the name. Roy jumped. Bullets snapped past at the height of a man's ribs. He ran anyway, low and fast, following the sound that never lies. A wounded man calling for his mother in a language that belongs to every war. He found the first casualty behind a torn tree. Tourniquet, morphine, pressure dressing. He dragged him to what little cover the jungle offered and went looking for the next. He moved through elephant grass that sliced the knees, over roots that grabbed boots, under branches that caught web gear and would not let go. He counted each step not by distance but by the weight of the man he was carrying. The helicopter dipped a skid at the edge of the clearing. Roy waved it in, through smoke, loaded casualties, and refused to climb aboard. The pilot shouted over the din, "Come up," and Roy shook his head. Negative. Send the litter. Then he turned his back on the only ride out of hell and ran deeper into it. More wounded, more blood on the bandages, on the leaves, on his sleeves. He found a rifle on the ground and kept it. Supplies ran thin. He broke open rations for sugar and salt, split canteens for a few last swallows that tasted like metal and heat. He moved men like furniture in a burning house, one after the other, making a corridor where there was only jungle. A rocket struck near the perimeter and the world went white at the edges. Shrapnel chewed the air and wrote its name across his back. He went to a knee, then to both feet, then to the next man who could not move. A round struck his face and painted the leaves. He spat red, blinked the stars away, and kept going. The landing zone collapsed when a helicopter caught rounds and cartwheeled at the edge of the clearing. The machine groaned like an animal. Roy ran to it while the air filled with hot metal and bad language. He hauled men from the wreck, some conscious, some not, some arguing with God in a voice no one else could hear. He planted a perimeter where there wasn't one, handed out magazines, and thumbed rounds into empty hands. On the radio, he called for airstrikes so close he could feel the heat on his cheeks. "Danger close," he said, and the pilot on the other end went quiet the way a man does when he understands what he is about to do. The jungle lifted and fell in sheets of fire. In the seconds between explosions, Roy counted heads and listened for the small sounds that still mean life. Breath, a curse, the scrape of a boot against a root. He crawled back into the green to find a map case and a radio that could not be left for the enemy. He moved inch by inch, elbows and fingertips, the way a man moves when he has too many holes to trust his legs. He found the case, hugged it to his chest like a newborn, and dragged it home through grass that whispered lies about how far there was to go. When another helicopter dared the clearing, He waved it down with both arms and a prayer. He loaded the most broken first. He pushed a man up by the belt and had to let go when his hands stopped listening. He used his shoulders to lift the next, then his back, then the last piece of strength that does not live in muscle. The bird jumped, sagged, and clawed for altitude. Roy stayed. There were still names in the jungle that were not done being called. The light left the day early. The fight stepped closer. He found another man with a chest wound and sealed it with his palm. He pulled a body behind a tree and apologized to the tree for needing it. He fired the rifle he had found earlier, not for glory, but for space. One more breath for one more brother. He moved through pain the way a swimmer moves through current. By remembering, there is shore. At last, a helicopter sank into the clearing and could not be argued with anymore. He threw the map case aboard. He counted again. 1, 2, 3. The number sticking in his throat when the shape he sought refused to appear. Then it did, pale and heavy. And he put his hands where they had to go and lifted. The helicopter rose, settled, rose again. He fell into the cabin with the last man half on his chest, half on his will. On the floor, the world narrowed to a fist of light. A medic leaned over him and shouted something he could not hear. At the aid station, someone drew a zipper and reached for dignity too soon. Roy's fingers twitched. He made his mouth spit because that was what it took to say, "Not today." They counted the damage later. Holes that did not belong in a man, cuts that should have made decisions for him, a ledger of pain that would have ended most lives. He slept the sleep you only earn after using everything. When he woke, the room smelled like disinfectant and victory. He asked for a head count. He got it. He let himself close his eyes again. Families back home slept through a night they would otherwise have lost. A man kissed his daughter in the kitchen the next morning and thought the coffee tasted better than it had any right to. A woman folded a uniform on Sunday and did not have to fold it into a flag. Somewhere, a boy listened to a story he would not have heard if a stranger had chosen to save himself instead. Years turned, and a president placed a ribbon around Roy's neck. Cameras flashed, hands clapped. He stood straight in a suit that could not hide the way he had been built. For the moment when a man decides that the life in front of him is worth more than the life inside him. Reporters asked what courage feels like. He said it feels like doing your job when the job asks too much. He spoke to schools and armories, to rooms that smelled like floor polish and hope, and he told the part that matters. The crawling in the hospital, the wall that would not move until it did, the simple truth that the world does not care what it owes you, but it notices what you pay forward. He said the words every soldier knows whether he has said them out loud or not. You do not leave a man behind. He said them with the calm of one who had taxed the sentence to its limit and found that it still held. When the nights were quiet, he walked the long hallway without turning on the light. He stopped at the doorways of his children and listened to the small proof of why. He touched the frame of the metal and then the kitchen table, because the table had held more meals than the metal ever would. He watched the sun move on the walls and thought about the faces in the jungle whose names still live in his mouth. Ask the men who came home on that helicopter what they remember most, and they will tell you small things. A hand under a shoulder blade, a voice that said, "Move," and made the legs listen the way the smoke curled around a man's head like a crown he did not want. Ask their families what they remember most, and they will say, everything. They will say, tomorrow. They will say, we got to keep the argument and the laughter and the small miracle of ordinary days because someone chose a harder one. What do you call a man who ran into a place someone else ran away from, who planted his feet in a storm and became the ground for others to stand on? Some call him a hero. He would disagree. He would say he was a soldier. He would say any of us would have done it. He would be wrong, and that is why we remember. He jumped with a knife and a medical bag. 6 hours later, men who were supposed to die did not. He carried them until the earth carried him. He counted heads until numbers became names and names became the reason. He turned a patch of jungle that smelled like cordite and fear into something else. A promise kept. If you're holding this story in your hands, hold it the way he held the map case, tight, because it matters. Pass it to someone who needs to know what a person can do when the world says he cannot. When the day gets loud, remember the quiet in a man's decision. When the night gets long, remember the wall and the inch and the next inch. Some heroes plant a flag. He protected ours, one life at a time. If this belongs in more hearts, share it. And if it moved you, subscribe and write De Oppresso Liber.